Hey. Lately, the AOC has been getting a lot of TLC from mainstream media. And that's weird as hell. Let's talk about it. Let's set the stage. We got a 29-year-old, unknown to the political establishment on Capitol Hill, and she's a barista. She also is a volunteer who worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, and she decides to run for office and becomes a Justice Democrat, and somehow she does the miraculous. She defeats an incumbent Democrat, and not just any incumbent Democrat. We're talking about Joe Crowley, supposedly to be the successor to Nancy Pelosi. Wasn't even close. She crushed him.
The winner here, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as you said, 28 years old, political newcomer here. She's accused the Democratic Party writ large of not taking the interests of people of color seriously, not paying much attention to working class communities. Do you think there's fair criticism in that?
I think it's always open to criticism in terms of policy. I think what we need to really steer away from is character assassination.
She dead ass crushed him. And of course that was, a contentious situation because you come in and you're beating someone that was well known, and the Democratic establishment is an establishment because it doesn't like change. Like status quo is the name of the day. To say that she wasn't greeted with all smiles and warm hugs would not be doing it justice.
For the Democratic to be the nominee for president.
Let me just say this about Ocasio-Cortez. She just got in on Thursday. She was sworn in.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's very opinionated, which we like. We like opinionated women. But it is very, very difficult when people make accusations where you say, the Democrats have done nothing. The establishment of the Democrats have done nothing. And I just want to throw this out to you. John Lewis wasn't sitting still.
Right.
Dianne Feinstein wasn't sitting still. Mm-hmm. There are a whole bunch of people in the Democratic Party who have been busting their asses to make sure that women get what they need, people get what they need, children get what they need. So you just got in there, and I know you got lots of good ideas, but I would encourage you to sit still for a minute and learn the job. Because there are people in that party who have been working their tails off for this country.
They know a lot.
And they know a lot.
And
you could learn some stuff from them. Yeah. And I just feel like, you don't have to be born into it. You don't have to know it when you step out. But before you start pooping on people and what they've done, you got to do something too.
Well, she hasn't done that.
That's well said.
Well,
that's really well said.
There's room for new energy.
They had some fire for her. But somehow she seems like she's overcome that, and she has become sort of she puts on a clinic on how to handle social media. She's approachable. She's likable. She's attractive. She's talking about policies that people care about, and it just seems to work for her. And I've noticed a change in our media landscape, where at first it was a contentious relationship between AOC and the corporate media, the MSNBCs and CNNs and the like, where they were just trying to play gotcha games, right? Trying to get her on something. And now it seems like they've become more like a cheerleader.
Yes, of course, health care, tax the rich, raise the minimum wage, end mass incarceration, all these things that are essentially being pushed by the new progressive Democrats in the House. I mean, that's what I wish. It's too bad that you have to be 35 to be president. That we put that in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, because people died at 38 or 40 back then. We need to lower that. If that was lowered to 30,
All right. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is that where you're going with this?
Could be running. Could be running. She just has to be 30 by the time January of 2021.
So she's, look, everybody can out-progressive each other on their platforms. You're saying that she's got fire in the belly to get
She is the
going?
leader. She is the leader. Everybody knows it. Everybody feels it. She's the leader of this mass movement that is not. I'm not talking about a movement in terms of an organization. I'm talking about a Fox News poll this week where it said 70% of the American public agree with her on having the top marginal rate for the rich, their taxes, 70% rate on the rich. And that's a Fox News poll saying that over 2/3 of the country.
Now, there are a lot of Americans who think that's crazy, but they also don't remember that we had marginal tax rates above 90%.
Yes,
at a time when the economy was actually doing.
I grew up in that time, and that's when all the libraries.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying
the libraries were open. There weren't potholes. Schools were great.
Yeah. Fox likes talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
I think they talk about her more than anybody else does. The right is enjoying having her as the image of what Democrats are. Is there a danger if someone that progressive runs that it does turn off moderates, or do you think that's not a danger worth worrying about?
No. First of all, if you're moderate, stop being moderate. Take a position.
Oh, you heard the man. Stop being moderate and take a position. Incrementalism is no longer so attractive to the populace. In fact, I don't think it ever was attractive. All right? That's a lie that most people want things to stay the same. Maybe when things are great for everyone and not just a few, not just the top 1%, maybe then everybody be cool with us just kind of chilling, laying back and slowly making changes. But as long as you got 35, 40% of African-American children underneath the poverty line, as long as you have, as we just saw represented in the shutdown, the government shutdown, we have government workers who are supposed to be doing so well. They're supposed to be middle class, right? Well, a lot of them could not make it, couldn't make their bills after losing or missing just one paycheck. So I think when you have a population that is that vulnerable, then there's no room for incrementalism, as Michael Moore just stated. There's no room for moderates. But see, Michael Moore's not the only one who's saying that Ocasio was on to something here.
I want to show for you some of the praise AOC is getting today. Listen to this. MAGA fans saying she's effective. A prominent political advisor says she has something that you can't coach. You either have it or you don't. She has it big league. And then this, gameness, grit, determination, fighting spirit. Compliments from none other than Steve Bannon for AOC today.
All right. That's right. You heard it. Steve Bannon says she's a fighter. Says she's killing it. That's kind of a big deal, don't you think? Nothing?
Interesting.
President as a centrist
We started hearing.
No, your thoughts.
Okay. Wow, that wasn't just in my head. Yes. Well, one of the things that AOC is so good at is that she's really good at messaging the Democratic Party's position on many issues. Of course, she's more to the left than what we would expect, but she's really good at messaging ideas that are actually popular, right? So if you think about taxation and the proposal that she's making, first of all, when it comes to taxing very highly rich people and the 70%, 70% of Americans actually support her and in that policy, even though it's being very, there's a lot of fear mongering on the right and a lot of billionaires like Howard Schultz going on television saying that this is very bad. The majority of Americans actually support that policy.
Right. And
it's a long-standing, it's since the 1970s. If you look back, the majority of Americans want to tax the rich more. AOC is able to communicate that message and make that exciting for people who may have not normally been on board.
And as you say, in a way that appears to be impacting some of these billionaires.
It's easy to call what AOC is doing as far lefty, but nothing could be further from the truth. When you advocate for economic policies that benefit the broad majority of citizens, that's true centrism. What Howard Schultz represents, the centrism he represents, is really just trickle-down economics, tax cuts for rich people, deregulation for powerful people, and wage suppression and benefit cuts for everyone else without the overt racism. He is not the centrist. AOC is the centrist. And I think one of her great advantages is she is young enough not to be captured by the neoliberal lies that have framed so much of the politics, by the way, in both the Republican and Democratic
That's
Party.
so important.
All right, stop right there. I just want to let it be known right now that Nick Hanauer is not some hippy-dippy, Scooby-Doo bus-riding kid out of Oregon. This is a businessman who's a multi-billionaire, who owned part of Overstock, changed the name, sold it for $6.4 billion, now runs one of those investment organizations. Worth a lot of money, whole lot of money. And what he's pointing out there is totally true. It's about the neoliberal lie. The neoliberal lie, you know it, the one where it says we need to privatize everything, where big businesses are the yellow brick road, and that trickle-down economics is the only path for poor folks. The only way for poor folks to live or succeed in society is by a big corporation bestowing upon them the ability to eat cake. And maybe if they act right, we'll give them some sprinkles. But they better act right. Meanwhile, the big corporations get the set-asides, the subsidies, and boils down to them not even paying taxes. So Ocasio-Cortez, who's talking about changing that narrative, and not only changing the narrative, but literally changing the way our tax code is prepared, so we get back to something more reasonable, where the anyone making over $10 million a year is going to be taxed at a higher rate, that 70% rate. So this is the conversation. But it's not just on these issues of taxing where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shines. Also, when she starts talking about social justice. Notice what she does here. Now, I got a couple of questions about it, but overall, I see where she's going.
And when we tell the stories of the mistakes we have made in the past, you know, economically speaking, when we talk about the issue of, say, reparations, people think, you know, people think about reparations as reparations for slavery. But really, economically speaking, reparations are for the damage done by the New Deal and redlining, because that is where we saw a compounding of the existing inequity from the legacy of slavery, where we drew red lines around black communities and we said white communities will get home loans and they'll get access to the basic bedrock of wealth in America. And this is the thing that you will be able, this will be your heirloom. And we gave white America an heirloom that appreciated over time, that people still benefit from today, and we did not give that to African American, Mexican communities, Puerto Rican communities. And so when we talk about investments today, you know, people first of all, they think of slavery as though it was like 500 years ago, as if people don't have grandparents, great-grandparents, or great-great-grandparents that were impacted by this. But even then, if we just talk that this was as recent as the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Now, AOC has been criticized about this clip because she is omitting slavery in this conversation. She's talking about redlining, Jim Crow, segregation. But I do want to recognize that she is at least broaching the issue of reparations and also putting into the consciousness of other politicians that you need to be up on this. Because when you're a leader, it's not just about getting everything right. It's about furthering the conversation. One of my major criticisms of Kamala Harris is a lack of being even to say what black issues are, the historical impact. I don't want to hear more about we need to lift, you know, a raising tide lifts all boats. But if you have some boats that are so damaged that those boats don't float, then you can't just talk about the tide. The tide will, nothing will change. Nothing will change if the tide just raises. We still have these people rock bottom. I see the vision, and like I said, it's not always about every time out you're going to hit a home run on every nuance of a question, but that you are willing to have the conversations that others aren't having. You know, I'm also seeing a level of maturity in AOC. You know, they call her the clapback queen, right? Because she's able to hit you real hard back on social media when something is, when they jump out at you, she's able to like clap back. Well, lately, she's also shown a level of maturity in her clapbacks where it's not always that she has to go for the jugular, so to speak. She can just correct you and keep it moving. For instance, Dan Crenshaw is a veteran who was wounded in action. I think it was Afghanistan. And he made national news not only because he was running for Congress, but because Pete Davidson of SNL made a joke about him, about his eye, which he lost in combat. And the next week they brought Dan Crenshaw on the show and there was an apology made. And well, the morning after the Patriots had won the Super Bowl, Dan took a shot at AOC on Twitter. And he said this: should someone propose a 70% tax on the Patriots so that the NFL competition is more fair and equal? Asking for a friend. And I'm not even so certain if Dan meant that as a diss. Maybe he's just not a Patriots fan. But the response that AOC made was on point. She said this, she said, the average NFL salary is $2.1 million, so most players will never experience a 70% rate. The owners who refused to hire Kaepernick would, though. Winning. Everyone's noticing AOC's ability to sort of temper her conversations in a way that doesn't hurt her brand. But she also has a team that obviously knows what they're doing, that are around her, that help her get out the right type of messaging. Even when you're on Instagram and you're posting like these 15-second or 30-second clips of your life, there's a level of sharing and oversharing that you don't want to go to. Beto O'Rourke did a little too much. And as a result, we saw his stock drop.
So I'm here at the dentist, and we're going to continue our series on the people of the border. I'm here with Diana, my dental hygienist. Diana's going to tell us a little bit about growing up in El Paso.
Beto O'Rourke made the mistake a lot of people make, where they think just because something looks easy, that it actually is easy. It's not. So as we move into 2020, look, I don't know what this is going to mean exactly for the Democratic Party, but she's definitely a part of moving them to the left. And who did she work for again? Who did she volunteer for? Bernie Sanders. I'm excited about the future of the left as we move more in the direction of policies that help people, where we have social safety nets, where we're raising people out of poverty, where we're not just thinking what corporations want. Now, if you're stuck on party lines, this is going to throw you for a loop. See, it's not just Democrats or liberals or progressives that want a change in our tax code that will make the rich pay a little bit more. So do conservatives. At least if you believe this Fox poll. I know these Fox correspondents in this video, their heads were about to explode. Check this out.
There is what seems to be a movement against capitalism in this country. This is a piece in Politico just published, Soak the Rich. Americans say go for it. In this piece, it talks about how recent polling is showing that the American public is increasingly on board with raising taxes on the rich. As evidence, we pulled up this latest Fox News poll on the issue, whether Americans support raising taxes on the wealthy, on incomes over $10 million. Those that are in favor of that, 70%, Charles. Over $1 million in income, 65% are in favor of raising taxes.
The idea of fairness has been promoted in our schools for a long time, and we're starting to see kids who grew up in this notion that fairness above all, and now they're becoming voting age, and they're bringing this ideology with them.
I know, Charles. I'm tripping too, man. People wanting fairness. Imagine that, wanting your children to get an education like, I don't know, like your parents did at the local community college for free. We used to have that, you know. And then we had very affordable college as well, where a young person could actually go to school and work and not have a bunch of debt when they graduated because the school prices weren't that crazy. Or maybe there are people who are want fairness. They want their grandparents to be able to afford their medications instead of having to skip a dose. Then we want criminal justice reform. How dare we not want to lead the world in the number of prisoners that we have? How dare we want people to be released from jail for crimes like marijuana, especially now that we've legalized marijuana and there are others getting rich off of it legally? That makes sense, does it? This person, because they live in this state, are in jail for 20 years, and this person gets to buy a Lamborghini selling weed. Get what I'm saying? So yeah, we're moving towards fairness, and whether it's AOC, or if it's a political candidate like Tulsi Gabbard, or if there's a senator who's going to run like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. Back to Kamala Harris. Click here, go watch the Kamala Harris video when this is over. Or I want you to check it out because, see, I think the left needs to be left. So we got too much centrist Republicans. They're Republican light. We need more people on the left who are actually left-minded, who see safety nets as not handouts. Handouts would be our military budget of 57% of our overall federal budget is military spending. That's a handout. What we give Amazon, Walmart, Apple, those are handouts. Okay? So I think it's high time that we respect where this nation is going as far as where the populace wants. The populace wants a fair shake, just like Charles Payne said. And I think we need to give it to him. You know, I talked about Kamala Harris in an earlier video. If you want to hear about my take on Kamala Harris, you need to click here in the corner. Kamala Harris, I'm not excited about her because I don't see where she is actually pushing us to the left. And as I look at old footage, as you'll see in the clip here, her tack was centrist, maybe even right-wing, to be 100. That's not the direction for the left. We don't need the left to be on the right. She may even be to the right of Hillary Clinton. So if you want your friends to become more educated to what's happening in the world of politics and in pop culture in a way that's different from your mainstream media, well, my tagline is news for people who can't stay in the news because they're tired of the way those guys do it. Share this content. Let people know about this video and also become a member of my Wolf Pack by clicking on the next screen. Here's a link to one of my Kamala Harris videos, and you'll also see my subscribe button. Click one of them, or click one of them and come back and click the other one.